Hello there. Welcome to a live DVIC stream where we're going to sit down and discuss everything WWDVC. I'm your host, producer Paul. Joining me today, I've got Julien and Nols from Ignition. First question, most important question, how are you guys both going today?
Yeah, I'm well. Thanks, Paul.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul.
So the first, I've got a whole bunch of questions here for you, and anybody that's watching live can ask questions as well. They can pop them into the comments section and we'll be able to read them out as they come through. But I think the biggest question I've got is, did you get any maple syrup while you were over there, Julien?
You know, I didn't. I know I was told to, and I actually, on the way out, I drove past the maple syrup place and they weren't open. And I went, wow, what do you do? And I had the time to do it, but it was I think I was too early in the morning for them, so I missed out.
Damn! But you did get to go to NASA.
Go on, Nols.
Yes, and indeed. So the thing that you need to keep in mind, though, is it's a little bit early in the season in Vermont, since DVIC or the Worldwide Data Vault Conference was a little bit earlier than usual, but by all means, yes, you cannot be forgiven if you do not bring gifts, right?
Well, surely you can order online. Like, you must be able to.
It's the joy of the internet. I'd be very surprised if you couldn't.
Yeah.
Your trip to WWDVC, because this was your first time over there,
Yes.
You got to do a few other sort of, were they bucket list items, visiting the Space Center and heading to Europe?
I've been a space nerd since I was, like watching Flash Gordon, I guess, like way back. Yeah, the old black and white stuff. I'm that old. So yeah, and to see Kennedy Space Center and all of that was pretty cool. I took a lot of photos. Obviously did that little clip, which was really weird, recording that and people walking around watching me holding a selfie stick talking to myself. But it actually took probably 4 or 5 goes because of that as well. But we got there. So
I don't think people realize when it comes to sort of on-the-spot content creation like that, just the challenges of, you're super awkward. You're doing something that makes you feel really self-conscious.
Yeah.
One of the things I really enjoyed that you did while you were away, though, were those interviews that you sat down with a whole bunch of people from WWDVC. Did you have that same sort of nervousness talking to those people?
I think I'm quite comfortable with the interview style stuff now because we've been doing a lot of it over the last 3 years. So that was pretty easy. And also I did it on the second last day of the event. So I got to know everyone, pretty well. We, like the best part of the event was hanging out with people and getting to know them. So I'd kind of clued up the audience that I was going to come around with my little setup and just try and get a couple of minutes of their perspective on it. And it was really good to get Dan for I don't know, he gave us 10 minutes or so, which was excellent to actually get his thoughts. And obviously he's now come out and suggested to the larger Data Vault audience to get involved with the DVIC as well. So it's really nice to have him helping us grow this community.
So, Nols, you didn't get a chance to go this year, unfortunately. Did you get a chance to watch those videos with Julien?
I have watched the videos of Julien, and if it wasn't for the fact that I had a green screen, you would have seen the green hue of jealousy. But I really missed the event. But no, I watched the event, the interviews, and that was fantastic. So thanks, Julien, for that content. My key question is, which one of your new friends that you've made at the conference do you think is one of the more interesting characters?
There's a wide range of interesting characters. I mean, I actually got to hang out with Bill Inman and have not only lunch with him, but actually lunch and dinner with him on the same day. So he's got to be top of the pile, right, as far as people to hang out with. And for those that maybe don't know, Bill is basically the inventor of the data warehouse. And if it wasn't for him, this industry probably wouldn't exist, or not in the way that it does. So that was a highlight. But hanging out with the guys from Infovire and Scale Free and Resultant and Fault Speed, and there's just so many people that are data nerds like us. So it was, I was in my element.
So then, how would you say the event itself went as a whole?
Oh, I think it was fantastic. Actually, I heard that it was the largest number of people they've had for an event so far. So that's really good. I think they were trying to work out whether they should do a hybrid sort of virtual physical, and decided to go full physical, which I guess is a bit of a risk, with the first sort of year of these sorts of events coming back on the calendar, and it worked really well. And you could see that just people were just really excited to sit down with others and and talk about work and things like that, but also just to get to know people. And there's people from Europe and the US and us Antipodeans, and so it was, it was cool to. I think I was the person who'd come the furthest to the event. Yeah.
Did you represent the entire Australasian contingent?
I think I did. Yeah, I don't think there was anyone else from Australia or New Zealand, so I was flying the flags, which luckily they both look pretty similar. So.
Yeah, we did try and fix it in New Zealand a few years ago, and we spent an awful lot of money on a referendum that said keep it the same. It was a
just
big
put an extra star on it, and then it's all the same.
No, I think we're good. We're good here. So Nols, this means I guess you haven't really had much of a chance yet to sit down and see the specifics of the content that's come out from this year's convention.
That is true. Unfortunately, I have to wait like everyone else with bated breath for the videos to be published, which I'm very, very keen to sort of peruse and go through. The beauty, of course, for the videos is you can fast forward and replay and do all of these stuff things. So all those salient points are easily done, as opposed to feverishly trying to capture it while you're in the audience. So there's a little bit of benefit to that, but it doesn't substitute for being there in person. So yes, all of the content will be available. Yes, you can get hands on it if you haven't been there, so you could be somewhat there in a virtual way. So very keen. There's quite a few discussions that I'm very interested in having a look at, having had a look at the agenda. And this year was slightly different. And so there was a specific business day, and perhaps Julien can give us some insights as to what that particular focus day was all about.
Yeah. Well, business day is probably my thing. As soon as it got really deep and technical, I started to struggle. But it was a really good addition, I think. It started off with the normal sort of introductions and addresses and stuff, but then Meg Rush from Moby Health gave a talk, which was just spectacular in the how do you engage your business users? What are your business users really actually interested in, and and how do you talk to them? Because we're a big technical audience. We're architects and data modelers and DBAs and and data engineers and all those sorts of titles we have, and as a group, we're probably not necessarily the best at talking to the business and really trying to understand their drivers and what they really need out of it. Like we can talk about scalability and flexibility and extensibility and every other ability, but really the business wants to know, how am I going to answer this question, or how am I going to improve this process, or how am I going to find some cost savings or another market, or so that was really good to hear Meg's view on that, and they're doing some spectacular stuff at Moby as a business, and obviously as a Data Vault user as well. So that was pretty cool. And then we had a panel which I actually got to participate on, and that was run by Mark Badinsky from Clean Data, who's one of the sponsors of DVIC. And we had Ken Graziano and Scott Ambler and Kevin Marshbank and myself. And that was really good to just, get to provide some perspectives on, again, kind of how do we talk to the business? How do we engage business users on the things that they're interested in? How do how do we articulate the value of a warehouse, let alone Data Vault, to someone who doesn't really want to know about governance and data quality and access management and all of these other things that we have to deal with. So that was pretty cool. And I think, my major point there was just, if we keep falling back on using these buzzwords like extensibility or flexibility, then we're not listening to what the customer really wants or what the user really wants. And we need to be providing that information back to them within the context of their requirements. So that was pretty cool to get up and sit on a panel like that, and obviously I got a chance to promote DVIC to the whole audience as well, which we obviously saw lots of new members joining up. So yeah, that was a really good day, and I think a really nice addition to kind of have a slightly different twist on what is otherwise quite a specific technical conference.
One of the things that was a really hot topic there as well was data mesh. I believe there were several sessions on it. What sort of insights did you get from those sessions?
Yeah, I mean, data mesh has been this thing that's kind of blown up in a way. Like, it's Zemek released her book, and the whole world jumped on it and went, this is going to solve all our problems. And I guess like everything else, you have the hype cycle and everyone gets excited, and then you start to learn about the realities of it and realize where it adds value and where it doesn't, or what have you. So Roche presented again, and they've presented before, I believe, at the event. And they're probably one of the big marquee users of data mesh as a concept. With, I believe, something like 40 odd data product teams. And very, very straightforward said, we're using Data Vault to make that happen. So I think the big message was that the mesh is a really clever organizational structure and set of processes. But the technical how-to, what model you're going to use, what architecture you're going to use, all of those sort of things, it all aligns to Data Vault, and Data Vault makes it possible. Data Vault has that extra level of detail to make that work, and that flowed into a session by Cindy Myson from Data Rebels and part of the DVA. She kind of did what does data mesh say and what does Data Vault say? Like a comparison between the two, and how do they map together, and the overlap, the mapping of very different set of terms, so referring to the same concept. And so it might be called something different in data mesh, but it is essentially exactly the same concepts that exist in a lot of Data Vault. So that kind of reinforces that if you want to adopt the data mesh paradigm for your organizational structure, then Data Vault's going to help you make that work. So that was pretty cool, because I think it gives people a way to go, well, we can't leap from where we are to full data mesh. That's just an unachievable step. But incrementally, we can implement a pilot of a Data Vault, and we can grow that, and we can then look at multiple teams, and then we can get centralized governance, and then we can have distributed teams, and then we can put some sort of virtualized access layer across the whole lot, and before we know it, we have a mesh. So it's pretty cool.
Nols, as an architect, as a Data Vault architect yourself, how excited are you about data mesh and what it brings to the industry?
Well, data mesh is basically one of those things that is one of the challenges we've always faced in the Data Vault world, and that is how to address your technical debt. And so now you have an organizational structure supporting business process and frameworks around that now lets the business own what the missing bits are. So if they want to produce a new product, then by all means they produce a new product. But they don't have to worry about how and where the data lands, and if they change the definition of their product, where does that go? None of those issues really plague them if they use the Data Vault as an underlying backbone, because the underlying Data Vault gives you the audit trail, the change history, the compliance components, the ability to reconcile. It gives you all of those fidelity elements all are baked into this already existing patterns and practices. So it is really a very good match, dare I say, mesh of the different approaches to produce an outcome that both the business can engage fully within, but also technically from a data perspective. All of the discipline, all of the architectural components are still ticking along exactly as was intended for managing information assets as such. So it is a fantastic initiative to couple with Data Vault, because now you actually have something more elegant to say you have to deal with your technical debt when it comes to business rules, which is effectively what your data product owners will be doing, is building small engines of business rules, executing, producing a product. So from that perspective, we go, fantastic, bring it on. Let's have more mesh, because that means less debt, less pain for your information delivery teams, because the gaps are taken care of.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, we've had a question come through from Richard, who heard a rumour of Data Vault 2.1 having a release. Are there any clues as to when we might see that?
Well, not that I know of. I know that there's some updates to the training. So maybe that's what Richard's referring to. Nols, is that the training update?
There is a training update. There are a specification coming up for 2.1. Now, it's not a 3. It's a small sub-point release. It's clarification and, in fact, aligning some of the mesh concepts and the Data Vault concepts, just giving the clarity around how those standards would interact, along with a few tweaks along the way, like as we published last year at the Worldwide Data Vault Conference, in the clarification around business key collision codes. So all of these small incremental tweaks that have been done on the periphery of the standards will now be published formally in a new version, or not a new version, but a point release of the standards. So it's still proper Data Vault 2. None of the core patterns or standards have changed. These are small clarification and alignment, essentially terminology being demystified so that people have a better, clearer understanding of how to leverage it. So yes, there is a 2.1 being published and being put forward, but it's not a earthquake. It is basically the train rumbling past building. So hopefully if that gives you a good analogy of the kind of changes that we're looking at.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for the question, Richard. Don't forget, if you've got questions, just pop them into the comments section. They'll pop up here and we'll get to them when we can. Next question, I guess, for you, Julien, is who did you meet? Like, who was sort of the top of the list of people that you met, and this best advice that you got from them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've obviously mentioned Bill Inman, and obviously got to meet with Dan as well, and Cindy, who I've spoken to Cindy probably, maybe in the order of 100 times. But first time I got to actually meet her in person, so that was fantastic. And I got to meet Mark Schulze from Performance G2, who is one of the other training providers in the US, and Michael Olszymski from Scale Free. The collaboration of the training providers and getting to spend time with them was fantastic. And then I got a whole range of people from different organisations. The team, Mike and Michael from Infovire. We have a lot in common with them. They're very much a Data Vault services practice, and they're doing lots of Data Vaults, and so we align and we have lots to talk about there. And I got to see CJ Date present as well, and he's a luminary in that sphere. But I didn't actually get to shake his hand, so can't probably say I met him. Look, there was just so many people that I actually got to sit down and spend time with. Probably hard to count. Well, about 160, I think that's how many were at the conference.
It's a lot of people.
It's a bit of a follow-on of a similar but different tack. At the conferences, classically a number of vendors presenting their wares, and it's a great place where they announce the new versions and the new capabilities and all the rest. So, any new announcements that came through from a more techie perspective?
No, I didn't dive too heavy into the what the vendors were presenting as far as capabilities, Nols, because as you know, that's maybe not my strong suit. But certainly had a lot of discussions around what the vendors that were there and why they were there and what they were doing. Spent a fair bit of time with the SQL DBM team, and they've got a really cool data modeling tool. So that was good. They're doing some very clever stuff. As a cloud service data modeling tool, and I think there's lots of opportunity for us as Ignition to work with them. And the Westgate team, obviously, we're really close to Westgate, and they do lots of great stuff, and we like working with all of their tools, so spent a fair bit of time with them. The VaultSpeak guys, who are InfoVia, obviously, with their InfoSecure tool, which is a really great tool for data access, and we're already big fans of that. And then there was a few others that are entering the space. De facto data vault automation tool as well over there. Coalesce had a good chat to the Coalesce team. So really well supported by the vendors, and then some of the service providers as well. So Performance G2, it's been a great night laughing about the differences between Australians and Americans and Canadians with the Performance G2 team, and they're similar. They're training and services as well. And Resultant are a big service provider in the US. They had a good team there as well. So it was I think. Technology-wise, is more about, for me, the partnerships and the ways that we can kind of help or work with each other to help solve customers' problems, rather than what feature are you releasing or what have you, because I don't get to play with the tools.
That was my next question: is what features are being released? What happens?
Yeah. Well, no one lets me play with the tools, because they want the data vaults to work. So. So from a business side though, it's really good to see so many vendors engaged with the event. It clearly adds value, and so it's and you can see it's just one big community. Like the customers that are there all talk to all the vendors. All of the vendors talk to each other. The training providers all talk to everyone. It's not it's not a stand back and wait for someone to come to your booth kind of scenario. It's like and then most of the vendors ran hands-on sessions as well, which I poked my head in and watched, but didn't really participate because it's just not my main focus. But so I think if you're a technical person, you probably get more out of the event than I got out of it, and I already think that it was a really valuable 4 days.
It raises a really interesting question actually for me, and Nols, you probably have a very different take on this as well as more of a technical person, but I'm wondering what you think will have the biggest impact from what you saw, what came out of WWDVC.
Well, there's a couple of things that stood out. For me, the maturity in the market of the number of vendors that do support it. So to the point Julien made a bit earlier, the maturity in the market, the fact that they're all going through a certification process, the fact that the clients out there can now expect a high quality product from any one of these participating vendors are fantastic. My very first Data Vault conference, I think there were 2 vendors that were essentially putting forward somewhat of a growing product, and they've all come with leaps and bounds very close to it. And now it becomes actually more and more important to understand what the full breadth of the support of the tools are and the integrations they offer, because that space is maturing. And so that is an absolutely fantastic position to be in, because now it becomes a conversation about not so much, You have to go and have only this one or two tools, and these one or two tools have these quirks, and there's nothing to be done about it. You actually have choice as a customer, and that is fantastic. And so that broadens the scope, that broadens the marketplace. It helps to sort of drive all that. So that is a fantastic element. The whole mesh conversation, we keep coming back to it. It's a hot topic. Is in fact fantastic news for Data Vault in general, because of the close match and the synergies that these two approaches, methodologies bring to the table. So from that perspective, at a technical architectural level, there's quite a bit of good news that's very apparent from the conversations so far observed out of the latest WWDVC. When the videos come out, I will be perusing those as with anyone else that wants to get access to them. And so from that perspective, I'm looking forward to that for a slightly deeper dive.
How about you, Julien? From your perspective, what do you think had the biggest impact? What do you think is going to have the biggest impact on DVIC members?
Yeah, well, I think for the DVIC members, we actually, Cindy and I, got on stage and talked about the various user groups that exist and how DVA supports the community as well, and what DVIC is for and how it's trying to, support everybody, work with the user groups, work with DVA, support everyone, provide this platform where we can all communicate. And so I think from that point of view, we should see a lot more members coming on, and we've obviously seen the numbers lifting, and but also a lot of the vendors have committed to coming on board as well. And so I've got lots of discussions on the go now with pretty much everyone I've mentioned about joining as sponsors as well. And so we'll have a lot more sponsors helping to grow the message out and bring more people into the community, a lot more interesting content, because we'll get, one of the key things that we try and encourage new sponsors to do is bring case studies, to the content stream. So hopefully we see a lot more case studies so that we have lots of different industries represented, lots of different use cases, different architectures that might have, or technology stacks that might have been applied to the architecture. So I think, the volume of content, the value of the content, the specificity, no, said that wrong, the specifics of the details.
Good try.
Yeah, I tried. But the details on, like the specifics of a particular use case or a particular industry and those sorts of things, we should see a lot more of that. And I think that'll add a lot of value. And then just the community growing, so the opportunities for peers to learn off peers. The idea that we can all lift each other and all get better at Data Vault, together as a community by supporting each other is our main goal as part of the team and we obviously announced that Scale Free had joined us as one of the foundational partners as well, and so that's Christoph's going to be at a conference in Europe, a big data conference in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be running around talking about DVIC to all the people and vendors there as well. And so I think if you remember now, you're in on the ground floor, and this is just going to continue to grow and add value. So.
Perfect. I think that's our time up almost. So we want to let people have a chance to finish their lunch because,
Absolutely.
It's cruel not to do that to them. One final question for you, though, Julien. As somebody who is in a warmer part of the world, how did you handle the cold of Vermont?
I took so much clothing. I had like, the thermal T-shirts. I had merino wool jumpers. I carted a lot of clothes all around the rest of the world, because I actually did go, as probably viewers know, I actually went to Europe afterwards to meet with a few of our partners there, and so I carried a lot of clothes around the world. I actually even took a pair of gloves, which I didn't use. It actually wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. I think we had one really cold day, so I had a lot of warm clothes, which I don't use very often in Queensland, sit in my suitcase for the whole trip.
I'm glad you
It
enjoyed
is a beautiful time, though.
Oh yeah, mud season.
Time being spring.
Yeah, it was. We actually went to the Von Trapp hotel, so it's owned by the actual Von Trapps, and so we went up and had a look at that. And we actually didn't go in. The restaurant wasn't open, unfortunately, but we had a good look around and then found somewhere else to eat. So.
Do they tell you how you solve a problem like Maria? That is a really good place for us to stop. For those of you that are watching this after we've finished our live recording, please feel free to jump onto the DVIC Community app. You can download it for free from your app store. Come join the conversation. Let's have a chat about what you saw at WWDVC, what you're really keen to see happen going forward, and reach out at any point in time to Ignition. Easy enough to find you guys online?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all over the place.
Exactly. Super easy to come join the conversation and to learn more from Ignition. Julien and Nols, thank you very much for joining us for this live stream today. It has been very informative. I'm still gutted that there's no maple syrup, but I will get over that. I will survive. Until next time, thank you very much, guys. Have a fantastic afternoon.
Thanks, Paul.
See ya. Thanks, Paul.